Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.
Hello. In this video, we will discuss Prothalamion as a wedding song. First of all, let's have a brief introduction to the poem. Prothalamion is a song or a poem celebrating a forthcoming wedding. This poem was composed on the occasion of the twin marriage of the daughters of Earl of Worcester, Elizabeth Somerset and Catherine Somerset. The poem was published in 1596. The poem has 10 stanzas and each stanza consists of 18 lines. The poem reflects on the relationship between marriage, nature, and politics. In the first stanza, the poet describes the beauty of nature and calls the day calm with light wind that cools down the heat of the bright sun. The poet is fed up with the court. His political ambitions at the court has failed. To lessen his pain, he goes out for a walk along the banks of the river Thames. The banks of the river are surrounded by different flowers. The flowers are so beautiful that the rooms of young maidens can be decorated by them. Then the poet turns to the river Thames to be quiet until he finishes his wedding song. The second stanza begins when the poet comes across a group of nymphs, whom he calls the daughters of the river. Their green tresses are hanging down like those of brides. All the nymphs are collecting different kinds of flowers to arrange their bouquets for their grooms on their wedding day. In the third stanza, the poet notices two beautiful swans swimming down the river Lee. He has never seen such beautiful creatures. They are whiter than the top of the Pindus mountain. Even Gorgios had never been so white when he transformed himself into a swan to seduce the princess Leda. The swans are so white that the river seems to make them dirty. In order to prevent them from dirt, the river commands the waves not to touch the birds. In the fourth stanza, the nymphs have filled their baskets with flowers and run all towards the birds who are floating on the sparkling water. The beauty of the two birds fills their eyes with wonderful sight, for they have never seen such beautiful birds and presume that they are heavenly creatures. They assume that they are perhaps the two swans which draw Venus' chariot through the sky. Nymphs are unsure if the birds are born on earth. It seems to them that they are the children of angels. The birds are as fresh as their wedding day. In the fifth stanza, the nymphs take out the beautiful flowers and throw them onto the two swans and on the waves of the river. The river looks like the Peneus River which flows through the Tempe Valley in Thessaly. The water is covered with lilies and looks like the floor of a bridal chamber. Then the two nymphs present their two garlands to the swans and another nymph sings a song which is composed for the two swans. The sixth stanza is the nymph's song for the two swans. In her song, she calls the two swans the ornament of the world and the glory of skies. Since the two swans lead to their lovers, she prays for their blissful marriage. She prays that goddess Venus and her son Cupid may smile on them, and their smiles may remove all conflicts from their marriage. She prays for their peace, food, and fruitful bedrooms. She wishes that their children may defeat their enemies. In the seventh stanza, every nymph repeats the refrain, "The wedding day isn't far off," and the line echoes throughout the meadow. Then the joyful swans go down the river Lee. Its waters murmur as if the river will speak to them. Then all the birds that live on the river begin to flock round the two swans. The swans are more beautiful than other birds, as the moon is brighter than the stars. The birds surround the swans in the same way as the stars surround the moon. In the eighth stanza, all birds leave for London, a place where the poet was born and raised in an old well-known family. Then they pass through a place where brook towers stand still on the banks of Thames. These brook towers are now abode for lost students, though in past it was a living place for Knight Templars. Then the poet mentions that next to the brook towers there is a place where he often received favour from the great lord, the Earl of Leicester. Then the poet finds it inappropriate to muse about the past and talks about the joys of wedding. In the ninth stanza, the poet says, "There now lives the Earl of Essex, who brought glory to England and is even admired by the world. He shook the pillars of Hercules when he defeated Spanish fleet in 1596. He is a man of honor, a knight whose victories traveled across England." Then the poet hopes that he might have enjoyed his victory. The poet also hopes that England won't be harmed by other countries because of his success and victories. The poet believes that Queen Elizabeth's name will be remembered by the world. In the 10th stanza, the Earl of Essex comes out of the house like the evening star Hesperus, who bathes his golden hair in the ocean and then rises after the sun sets. The Earl of Essex has a large crowd behind. Among the crowd, two handsome knights appear who are good match for any queen. Then the two knights go down to the river to meet the two swans whom they dearly love.